Go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited to see all of you here. The response has been so overwhelming, and to see so many of you after such a long time. And I know some of you drove very far to be here today. So a very, very big thank you to all of you. And to all our online guests. I mean, the numbers are just absolutely overwhelming. I've seen so many responses coming through. So I really appreciate that you all take the time to be with us today. So first of all, just a couple of admin issues, and then we get into the gist of the session. The restrooms is just down the passage on your left. And then there is some water and drinks over there. And in the case of an emergency, what do we do in the case of emergency? We follow you. Okay, back to where we registered and then down the stairs. Is that it? Okay, but we're not planning any emergencies today. It's not on the agenda at all. A special welcome for our guest speaker, Lincoln and Ingrid. There's Ingrid. And to my CE, Victor, and our MD, Opa, thanks for being here. Without the two of you, we couldn't make this possible. So I really appreciate your sponsorship for this event. So why a platform for women in internal audit? And what do we want to achieve with that? And why are there men here? That's probably, I read your mind. I read your mind. So first of all, I started thinking along the lines of this about a year ago, and I'm saying there's something missing. We need a platform, a network for internal auditors, and particularly for women, that can connect and learn from each other, share stories, encourage each other, and just be there for each other. So when I'm going through my menopause and I forgot stuff, there must be somebody I can say, does it happen to you as well? You know, I walk into the room and I exactly know who you are, and suddenly I just can't remember your name. And just knowing that there's someone else that has the same. And I shared this with one of my now dear friends. At the time, we were still getting to know each other better. And she's in the room as well today. And she said to me, but Ria, you're spot on. We need this. We need a platform like this. We need a platform where young upcoming internal auditors can actually look up to other experienced ladies, experienced internal auditors. What really made this true for me is when I was looking to recruit people, because our team is growing, our business risk services team are really doing very well, and I'm very humbled and proud by what we've achieved, which means I need to continuously look for talented people. And I spoke to a lady that actually for, I think, 10 years or so, took time out of her career because she was looking after her family. And she wants to come back into the profession. And she was recruited into S&G Grant Thornton, but she was unassigned, like on the bench, like most of you know. And I said, I don't like when people do nothing. The only person that do nothing is me. I like to look pretty. So, and I spoke to her. I said, come. You're going to come and work with us. What I did not know is how technology changed in 10 years. This lady did not know how to actually conduct a decent Teams meeting. I mean, she barely knew where to click, what to do. Excel was quite different for her. And I said, look, you can do it. We'll do it together. We'll show you. I introduced her to other team members. And the adapting back into the professional way of work was really hard for her. But she persevered because she wanted to get back into the profession, and she did it. And really reflecting on her journey and how hard it was for her, I realized there's a pool of talent out there that we are not tapping into, which is those people that for a period of their lives prioritize their families or something else, or elderly care. And when they try to get back into it, first of all, the CV says, I was unemployed for 10 years. So now recruiters already frown on that and say, what did you do for 10 years? Oh, you were just a housewife, or whatever that could be. But there's a pool of talent out there that with encouragement, with help, with opportunities like this, network events, can actually get into the profession again and make enormous contributions to organizations. So that's the one reason why I started this, is to be that network and platform for people to connect. Then later last year, I met someone else, Akona, and we started talking. And when I interviewed Akona and I told her about my dream, she added on to my dream.
Yeah. So Ria is right. We started talking last year, and for me specifically, having been a new mom, so where I was previously working, I actually took 6 months maternity leave, and basically I was looking at small faces for 6 months. So when I actually got back at work, I was feeling very overwhelmed on my first day back at work. And I remember there was a certain colleague, I think those are in the room that have worked with me would know this one because I was in QA at the time. So this colleague actually phoned me and congratulated me, saying that how are the twins, how are things been? So the conversation actually went on. So towards the end of the conversation, they were like, Akona, can I quickly ask you a QA question? And I mean, can you just imagine for somebody who's actually been away for 6 months and you actually been asked a QA question? So even myself, being in the QA team, because you're expected to be on top of your game to know what's actually happening in the industry, I was actually taken aback. And I actually had to sort of like do this. And I told them, look, I'll have to go back and get back to you. So a platform for this, like for me, it means a lot, for women, not necessarily, that have been out of action, but they came back from maternity leave. And it's also people that have long had been absent from the profession for a long time. So I'm quite excited in terms of like what we're going to do together as this network, as an organization as well, and also for us individually. So really looking forward to hear the suggestion and for your participation as well.
And this wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have a team of ladies around me. Amongst others, this one, because every time I have a bright idea, I'm like, Akona, do you think this will work? Then she says, yeah, let's think about it. And then she talks to someone else. So from the original idea to where we are today, it has evolved quite a lot. And even in the last few days, we still tweaked and added. And then Lebo and Des that is supporting us. I think every time Ria says, I've got a new idea, they want to run away. But I got used to me, so I think it's working on well. So then the last question is, why do we have men here today, number one? And number two, why do we have Lincoln as a keynote speaker? I mean, seriously. Are we actually saying there's no phenomenal women out there that can come and talk to us today? For me to get where I am today, I had men in my life. And I had many men in my life. Not only my husband that after 34 years still loves me. I don't know how, but anyway, we can ask him that one day. But I mean, as a young article clerk joining EY in Maifikeng those years, there was a partner that believed in me and that trusted me and gave me the opportunity to do an audit at a client. And he believed in me and trusted in me to do it. And so in my life, there were many, many chances where people noticed me and gave me a chance. And from where I come from, it was often men. It was men that said, Ria, you're talented. Ria, we think there's potential for you. Take the chance. And even with this event, it was our CE and Opa that said, come on, Ria, have the courage. Go for it. Do it. And then, I mean, I met Lincoln a couple of years ago, and I just realized here is someone that is so inspirational, that believe in people, that give people chances. And I've heard him speaking a few times and some of his stories around how he's helping people and about leadership. And I read his book. For those of you that don't know, he's also an author. And I just every time get goosebumps, and I'm like, this is somebody I can learn from so much. I have learned from so much. And who better to come and talk to us today about leadership, about development and prosperity and so forth than Lincoln. So that's why it's a man today. And we will have many more guest speakers as the time goes on with this event. So please, in the meantime, start thinking about, what would you like to get out of this platform? Help us, give us ideas, offer your time, and so forth. We have an app where you can put all of this on. And that is the code for it, Slido. For those of you that haven't downloaded the app yet, it's also available for our online participants. Please download it. You can either anonymously contribute or ask questions, or you can add your name. There's a little place where you can register and you can put your name in. And we would really love to get your questions for me for later, or for Lincoln, or for our other guest speaker, Ingrid, later. Or just your suggestions of what you expect from this forum going forward. So over to you, Lincoln.
Thanks, Maria. Good morning, everybody. More almal, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Salam alaikum salam, Namaste. Right. I'm so happy to be here. I don't get a lot of opportunities to express myself at home. So when I have an opportunity to be outside that environment, my vocabulary changes a bit. I have more to say, and the most amazing thing is that people do listen to me. But at home, my vocabulary is small. It is yes, dear, no, dear, I'll do it now, dear. So I'm very grateful to my wife and kids for allowing me an opportunity to be heard by others. Ria is very different at work to how she is to me now. So this afternoon, we're going to have a board audit committee. My name will change from Lincoln to management. So when she's talking to me, I'm management. But for this morning, I'm Lincoln. So thank you, Ria, and thank you for everybody for having me. My name is Lincoln, or Lincoln, depending which school you went to, and I'm comfortable in our diverse country to be known by any name you want me, to be known by. So when I was reflecting on what to cover today, I thought that let me pick on maybe just 4 themes. The first one is leadership, because all of us talk about the fact that we need leadership. But in many ways, it's kind of like being in traffic. Everybody complains about traffic, but they are traffic. Are you with me? Everybody complains about traffic, but you are traffic, right? I want to talk about women leadership and empowerment. I want to talk about the role of men. As Ria points out, I'm a man. I can't be a woman, but I can choose to be a gender activist. I can choose to be supportive of women in all environments where I find myself. Then I want to talk about ethical leadership in the context of internal audit. And then I want to end off by talking about our role in society. How can we be midwives to Africa's rebirth? By the actions we take in our own environments. That's really what I want to cover today. So I want to start with this notion of leadership. There is a big thing happening on the 29th of May. Everybody is excited about the 29th of May. But I'm more excited about what happens the next day. Okay, we've done the thing on the 29th of May, then what? What's happening in my school? What's happening in my family? What's happening in my village? What's happening in my town? What's happening in my family? Who's leading there? If we were to vote there, what vote would we get? If my family would vote about me, would they vote for me? If my staff were to vote for me, would they vote for me? If my community where I come from were to vote, would they vote to say, we're proud to have him that's coming from this town? So everything I'm going to talk about leadership, please resist the temptation to look at them. We know them, right? We know them. And they've got lots of issues, them. We know. And we will tell them on the 29th what we think about them. But I'd like us to think about in your sphere of influence, what can you do? If you are a leader, what are you doing and what can you do more of? If you aspire to be a leader, what kind of leader do you want to be? I sometimes say people have a lot of opinion about leadership until they become a leader. Please don't tell me about humility and all of these things until you get the job. And you got a bit of this. Remain humble when you've got this and this. Right? So let me start with my journey. I've been in leadership roles in community organizations, NGOs, the public sector, and the private sector. And everywhere I could not relate to what I saw. It did not gel with my values. In the public sector, it was deputy director, deputy minister. It was the title was it. When I went to the corporate sector, I found that there was the omnipresent CEO who knows everything. Everybody defers, even the way people sit. Your chair is there. And I thought, this is not what I want to be. And I was grappling to say, how would I lead? I realized that the leaders I wanted to follow were hidden in plain sight. It was my parents. It was my school principals. It was my teachers, my sports coaches, and so on. And I'd like you to just imagine something. Imagine somebody who's had a big impact in your life, whether it was a teacher, priest, coach, anything, or relative. When you go back to where you come from and they see you, they might not have moved up in the economic ladder, but when they see you, their face lights up because their calling was to produce people like you. I wanted to be that kind of leader. My job was to produce other leaders, to enjoy to see other people grow and succeed. So I refused to follow the path that other leaders followed. I wanted to be the producer of other leaders. I wanted to be the celebrant, to the one who is like the mascot for other leaders, for people to do well. And that's the path that I chose. So when people get into leadership roles, the first thing I ask them, why do you want to lead? Not what you tell others. What's the real reason why you want to lead? Is it the power? Is it the status? Is it the perks? Is it the money? Tell the truth to yourself. Because if the main reason why you want to lead is all those bling related things, you will lead in bling related ways. But on the other hand, if there's a higher calling, a higher purpose, an objective, a goal, you will lead towards a higher goal. Hear me well. I'm not saying there's something wrong with bling. There's nothing wrong with a bit of bling. But it can't be what defines you as to why you want to lead. It's okay to want a promotion, but are you willing to take on the responsibilities that come with leadership? And not just take the check and the title and the corner office, but you're not willing to take on the responsibilities. So leadership is not a title held. It's not a position occupied. It's not an election won. It's a profound influence felt. Our real leaders are not defined by their title. They're defined by the impact they have on the lives of the people they lead or on the lives of people that they touch. That's the kind of leadership we require in every facet of our lives, in corporates, in the public sector, in our societies, in our communities. We need those kinds of leaders. The first job of leadership is to love people. Leadership without love is manipulation. I speak to many young people who say, you know, Lincoln, I've got a promotion, but hey, there's this thing of these people. Yo, they've got this and that and that. And then I say to them, it's their job. That's the job of leadership. It's no longer about you and what you used to do. You were brilliant as an auditor on your own. Now you are a leader of audit professionals. Your job is not to be the best auditor. Your job is to produce and manage and look after the best auditee. When they become great, you succeed. And this is a big mindset shift where we pick people because they were brilliant and they want to continue to be brilliant, and they end up doing the job of the people that they're meant to lead. 80% of my life in my career I've spent with staff and customers. 80% of my career, unashamedly. There are meetings I don't go to.
Except if they was the auditor.
Oh yeah, audit meetings, we don't play around with those. So in that 80%, I'm spending time with staff and customers. I'm getting the essence of what's going on. We're debating, we're giving context and all of that. But if I just go and do the people's work, I'm missing in the part where I have to be a leader. People say, no, we agree with you, Lincoln. I'm going to do this. I'm saying, no, before you agree with me, go look at your diary. Go look at your diary. Your diary will tell me whether you're leading or not. Because it will tell you how much do you spend, where do you spend your time. If you're saying you're a leader, where are you spending your time? And that's important, right? In the moment we had now, part of my job, and it so happened because Victor was here and Opa was here, I could give them feedback about Maria and, and Riaz. Because if I don't do that, I failed in my role. Because I have to get that opportunity. But if I spend the whole time just talking to them about just our stuff, I failed. There's enormous responsibility that comes with leadership. So leadership is about the ability to influence, right? And the humility to be influenced. A lot of people love the influencing part. They kind of suckle a bit with the being influenced. You can't say you're a leader and you want to influence everybody, but you don't have the humility to be influenced, because you will get other ideas from others, right? Rhea, for example, asks me, she says, okay, after you finish, are you going to leave? I'm like, no, how am I going to leave? Because how am I going to learn if I'm not going to learn from the next speaker, from the questions and the interactions? Because then it's like, oh no, I've just come to influence and then I'm gone. No, I am learning, right, from all those interactions. What we require is more leaders who lead with a flag in front rather than whip from the back. People who inspire, people who guide, people who give hope. Now, I hear some leaders say, I need hope. I say, yeah. You need hope, but for you in your role, you have to give hope to the others below you. You have to find your other avenues for hope for yourself. But you can't say you have no hope, because the people below you then have no hope. When I walk into work, everybody expects me to exude confidence, to exude hope and belief. Does it mean I don't have my bad days? I have got lots. But I can't be showing drama in front of everybody. And when I go home, I can't show drama at home. So if you want to see my drama, it's between work and home. There I have all my drama. When I get home, I'm like, How are things? Because I can't bring the gum from work to home, or take the gum from work from home to work. If my wife and I had words, obviously my wife would have paragraphs with me. I can't now take that into that environment. Or I had a bad day this morning at home. You don't care about that. You said you've come here, I must give a speech. So you as a leader have to manage your drama. One time when I was working at Standard Bank, one of the biggest things we had was a cyber attack. We were one of the first to have such a big cyber attack. And it was done through people that were in Japan. They got through the system to the core of the systems, and they were able to approve transactions, right? Going through ATMs. And I'd only been in the job, I think, for 6 months, heading up card and payments. I was still in what I call the Wimbledon moment when you are new in a job. You're like, so when they said there was a data breach and cyber whatever, I'm like, okay, gotta Google this, right? And then they told me what had happened, and we'd lost about 300 million rands in a matter of hours. We went through all of that. And when I went home, hey love, how was your day? Oh no, it was okay, love. We just had some Japanese visitors. They just borrowed money without going through credit. You know what I mean? Only later on could I tell it the story. But at the time, to bring all of that wasn't going to help in my environment. So indeed, if serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. Many of our leaders take these roles, but they cannot serve because it's more about their ego and their title than the actual job at hand. The job at hand is to serve. I'm there at Disaka to serve its customers, I'm there to serve its staff, I'm there to serve its shareholders. Not that the people there are there to serve me. If you go to people at Disaka and you even ask them what my title is, they wouldn't tell you. But they know Lincoln or Lincoln. But they don't know I'm CEO, all of these things. Titles are for beer bottles. So serving is fundamental if we are going to make a difference. And it starts with the guy at the gate. How does that guy feel every day when I greet him? Do I make him feel worthy of doing the job he does? The people who are cleaning, do I make them worthy? And I can tell you, if you walk there and you see around at the end of each quarter, you'll see all the cleaners. They are like, hey, they'll shout at me, Lincoln. Because we have a standing date of lunch together at the end of every quarter. Doesn't matter what, I'm accountable because that's the culture we started. On that day, they don't clean, they come dressed in their whatever, and then they do content. The whole time I'm like, are you not gonna eat? They're like, no. Instagram has to eat first. They'll take the pictures, whatever. So serving is fundamental to us as leaders and not to be served. One of the biggest problems is the environment we create. Do we create an environment where new ideas, where innovation, where dissent can happen? If that environment is not there, you have some of the challenges we've seen with many companies going into trouble because only certain voices can be heard. We need the plurality of voices in a company so that you can make sure that the company has got the best minds focused on what needs to be done. And the closer those people are to the customer, the more their voice should be permeating through the structures of the organization. But as a leader, you have to be really, really committed to drive change. You can't drive change through an email. You can't drive change to a big announcement from the splendid isolation of corporate headquarters. It requires visibility. managerial accountability, and the clear and consistent communication, and the genuine engagement with stakeholders. I was talking to a colleague, I think her name is Marcia. Right? Marcia is from Rates. Now, most people will not even know where Rates is. Now, I know Rates because when I used to work at Standard Bank, I used to go to every place in the country where there was a Standard Bank. Some of the places I used to go to, you wouldn't see in the weather report. But one of the places I went to was Rates. So when she told me about Rates, I told her a story. I went to meet farmers at Rates, and I was talking to them about all the new charges we're going to give them as a bank, and we'll charge them on their overdraft and they don't use them and all of that, and explain it from a bank point of view, because we're a bank, we buy money and we sell money and we sell it at a price and all of those good things. At the end of the conversation, they bring this thing. It's breakfast, right? But there's this thing, this concoction. You can see as the smoke is coming out of this thing that this thing is potent. And the team moves back, and I take this thing and I drink it. Afterwards, I say to this farmer, yeah, I didn't get a scope. And the farmer says, so fully rent a kurse. So basically what I was saying was, this thing is going to kick. And he was saying, yeah, that's how your fees are feeling. But you can't have that if you're not on the ground, driving change and allow only your people to interface and tell customers now they're going to be charged for their overdraft. You have to be the message so that you support your people. Sometimes you go with your staff to difficult clients. You can't say only your staff will go to a most difficult audit. Sometimes you have to be there. Go and have an engagement. Go and have the difficult conversations. Luckily, I've seen Opa there whenever we're discussing budgets. He's there because you want your staff to feel some of the negative comments that will come from a client. If you're always at the back and your staff cannot feel you're there, then you're not leading. Traveling the length and breadth of Nigeria, when I used to work there, Nigeria has got 36 provinces or states. I was fortunate to go to about 28. And we would go to clients that are sometimes difficult. And because their status is important, and certain clients we want, and then we go there and there was a problem. And then they hear there's an Oga is like a boss, Oga from Joburg. And then the meeting is organized, and then I said, no, they're like, no, it's nothing. You tell this Oga these problems. It's not small problems. How much are we doing with Stanbic? 10%. Increase it now to 60%. But it is because you were there. You were there with your people on the ground, facing the difficulty and driving the change. But leaders have to be fascinated by the future. You as a leader, you have to be restless for change. You got to be impatient for progress. You got to be deeply dissatisfied with the status quo. Because in your head, you can see a better future. In your head, you know the difference between what is and what could be. It burns you. It stirs you up. That's leadership. If all you want is status quo, you're not leading anybody. You're just taking a stroll by your lonesome self. Leadership requires for you to have courage not to promise a false future with no change. Change is there. And you have to take your people through that change. And sometimes it's not popular. Change is the province of leaders. It's our job as leaders to take people and make them struggle towards a misty future that they cannot see. Your job is to create that vision of what that future is. And accept that after your meeting, the real meetings will take place after your meeting. Your job is to anticipate the questions that come from those meetings. In your next meeting, you discuss what was discussed outside. Don't say, I tick the box, the PowerPoint presentation, they listened, and all is fine. No. The real meetings are the ones that take place outside, where they say, Tommy, if he again, no, Tommy, don't stop, no, Tommy, no, it's enough. Those are the conversations. Your job is to create an environment where those conversations come more inside. And the ones that are outside are less and less, and these ones are more and more. But as a leader, to deny that those conversations are taking place doesn't help you. But part of leadership is learning. How many leaders are willing to learn, to adapt, to hear more, to broaden their horizons, to widen your perspective? If all you know is what you've known when you left school, you are dangerous as a leader. You are bad for an organization. You have to keep on learning. Leadership is lifelong learning. But this requires us as leaders to be silent before we can listen. We must listen before we can learn. We must learn before we can prepare. We must prepare before we can serve. And we must serve while we can lead. God had a crazy idea to give us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Can you imagine if it was the opposite? The ugliest animal on this beautiful continent of ours is a hippo. Hy die grootste bek en die kleinste ore. If as a leader you become a hippo, all you do is talk and you don't listen, you will never get feedback. If you doubt, try that with your kids. How's that going for you? Kids will tell you, Mom, do you really have to raise your voice? Young people of today cannot be managed by the command and control of the past. They require engagement. They ask why. And you've got to be able. And as a leader, you have to have a sense and pulse of your team. Feedback is very important. You can't be like the leader of one of the countries up north. I'm not going to mention the country because I have to go there. They say to the leader, Your Excellency, Mr. President, say, it's been more than 27 years. When are you finally going to say goodbye to the people? He says, why? Where are the people going? So there was a slight feedback problem there. So as a leader, you have to have a sense, right? You have to have the pulse. Nobody teaches you than experience, than hearing from people. Those of you who are men, who are married, yeah, you know. There are different yeses in life. I'm just going to see the guys. Yes, 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 yes. Which ones of those yes is the right one? You don't know. All you'll know is you go out there and it's the wrong yes, come back home, picture no sound. Right? We need empathy. We need to really empathize with the people we lead. Mental health is real. Mental health requires us to be more sensitive. Because if we can only react to a broken leg because we can see it, we cannot see a damaged mind. We cannot see a tortured soul. We cannot see what people are going through. We require more empathy, more understanding. Leaders have to be talent magnets. You have to be attracting the best. And now in my career, I've been criticized by so many people. That Lincoln is not good. That one is not good. He just has got good people around him. I'm like, duh. That is exactly the point. Why would I go hire people who are more doff than me? Why? Why? It's just ego. Ego means that you want everybody to be doff than you. Why? But leadership is hire the best. And where they do well, you will do well. So we've got to attract the best. We've got to be the kind of leaders that can lead people who, as if we're leading volunteers. Because volunteers can leave you any day. I don't want people in my team to stay because they have no other options. I want people to stay because they like working at the company where I work. You've got to be at Lusaka because you are wanted in Lusaka and you want to be in Lusaka. Don't stay there because there are no other companies that want you. No. I want the best, right? And then how we treat people. must not be dependent on their title. Just relating to people at a human level gets you a lot, because people feel part of something big. So our job is to shine light on the talent of the people we work with. When things go well, give credit to the team. When things don't go well, take ownership. It pains me when in boards, junior people's names are mentioned when something goes wrong. How? You've got all these people with all the fancy titles, something has gone wrong, they disappear. Suddenly somebody's name is mentioned. Can't have that. So let me come to the issue around women. Firstly, it is fundamental in this country in particular, but broadly in the world, for leaders to embrace diversity, to build teams of people that come from diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, diverse religions, diverse in age, diverse in gender and social backgrounds. If you only hire people that sound or look like you, you're missing out. If only people who come from my town are hired at Lusaka, we have a problem. If I don't have the full diversity of this country, I'm missing out. And people who come from diverse background bring a dynamism to an organization. I don't do it because the legislation tells me so. I don't do it because I have to keep a scorecard. I do it because I have the full depth of society. And I'm so happy that finally South Africa is going to honor Rasi with an honorary doctorate. Because Rasi saw this 10 years ago. And he explained what he's going to do. The debate in the past was a transformation or winning. It's like, duh, it's both. He says, I'm going to build a team that's diverse and it's going to win. Guy did it 2019 in Japan. Oh, still we doubt. The guy's done it again. We still doubt. I challenge you to go watch Chasing the Sun. Okay, there are some colorful words, but take the principles. Take the principles, not the colorful words. But the point is, he built a team of people from the most diverse backgrounds. And those guys had to trust one another to win. We didn't trust them. Let's be honest. We didn't trust them. Every time they won, but during the time, we fluked them, we called them names. No, get this one out. Don't get this one. These are all human beings. That thing tells the story when you take one guy out and put on. These are human beings. Managing a team is managing all that diversity. When I'm giving this one an opportunity and I'm saying no to this one, I have to journey with both of them. That's what leadership is about. When it comes to the issue of women, I am so, what Ria Nakona was saying here is so real. Because current corporate South Africa gives women a false choice between a good career and being a good wife or versus being a good mom. It's a false choice. Women must make the choices for themselves, not because they are responding to paternalistic pressures from male bosses or unsupported partners. Sometimes in your own house, Ria mentioned something, in your own house sits or lies next to you your glass ceiling. Your glass ceiling is here next to you, snoring. You've got great plans and ambitions, what you will be. Have you had that conversation? And does the person support you? Or when Rahadi says, no, you have to have 3 children. What does he say? Does the three children align with your career path? Those are choices, right? Ria says there was support from her husband. And that's important. But again, in the workplace, how do we support people as they go through those choices in life about when to have children? These are things that are real. They are not airy-fairy things. And they are not the thing that everybody wants to talk about in August. In August, I don't come to any discussion on women. I don't come. Because now they've made it a, I don't want to call it, it's like a glitzy thing. We'll talk about women in August and everybody come take your pictures. Hey, you'll be shown. Okay, what happened in September? October, November, December, January, February. I want to have discussions about women issues on those days. Because the issues women face are daily issues and not August issues. How, for example, in our company, does a manager deal with a woman who's going through a divorce? Where in our guidance in our company is there to lead a woman who's had a miscarriage? Where in our documents in our company is there guidance to leading a woman who's having postnatal depression? Where in our documents do we give guidance to a woman who's in an abusive relationship? Where's the guidance for a woman who has a child with disabilities? These are the real things that people are dealing with. They're not happening in August. They're happening every day. And the same people have to succeed in the workplace with all of those challenges. And they need people to journey with them, with all of those. You don't just send them to HR. You walk that journey with those people and you learn from it. One of the challenges that I certainly deal with, many of the young people I mentor and I guide, is this thing of wanting to be perfect. My guys, there's no need to be perfect to inspire others. Let people be inspired by how you deal with the imperfections. Guys, this thing of creating a sense that you have to be perfect is a problem. We have to undo it. Because there's this obsession of being perfect. Nobody's perfect. So that people can actually say, these are my imperfections, and I'm embracing them. Somebody wants to support me, will support me with my imperfections. But those who want to use your imperfections against you, you see them coming. Like, I see you. It's okay. These are my imperfections. And I'm embracing them and I'm walking my journey with them. One of the biggest challenges women face is this thing of fearing to do things and worry about what others think. Akona and Ria, you had an idea. You discussed it. Each one of you could have had fears. You discussed it on something very painful, something very difficult. You had a conversation. Something was born, which is today. How many other ideas are people dying with those ideas? They're not taking those ideas forward because they fear what others will say. We have to escape from this prison of wanting acceptance for people who don't actually really matter. Those people don't matter. Because many of them, no matter what you do, they have the same views. So how do we make sure that you do what you do and you love what you do? Those who are internal audit, there is a particular view about internal audit that comes from people who are not in internal audit. Does that now mean that you have to define yourself on the basis of the views of those people? Or define internal audit in the manner you are passionate about? How about saying, actually, if you're not in internal audit, you're not anyway. Because you believe in it. You're passionate about it. You drive it. I had a conversation one time with one of the people I mentor. She was an internal audit person, and she came to my office. and I was working at Standard Bank, and you know the hierarchy. So we met, I said who she was, whatever. We talked about the audit, everything. And it was a very difficult audit. We finished, and then she went away. About a few months later, she writes to me to say, do you know how difficult that meeting was for me? For days, I was preparing for this meeting because I was going to meet somebody that senior with something this difficult. Our job as leaders is to create an environment where labor doesn't have sleepless nights to come and have a conversation with me. I'm not a god. I'm not a god. I'm an ordinary human being. Even when we disagree, we must disagree with respect. As Ria and I differed on the budget a couple of weeks ago. So one of the things that I try and say to my daughters, I say this to my wife, I say to my daughters, I say to a lot of people I mentor or women, please don't carry your mistakes around you. It says place them under your feet and use them as stepping stone to rise above them. There's this thing where there's a presentation and there's something wrong in the presentation during the most important meeting. Then the thing is done. You are still carrying the thing 6 months later. Oh, that presentation didn't go well. Oh, I wonder what Victor and Opa are thinking about. Opa and Victor have moved on. Move on. Everybody makes mistakes. Now comes the male guy after you. His presentation has got 50 mistakes. He's got the confidence. I say, guys, please think of this as wardrobe failure. Guys, men, you'll be briefed about what is wardrobe failure, right? Wardrobe failure happens all the time. You go to any event, you've got everything organized. Then something happens. What do? Take one of the ladies, you go to the ladies, get it sorted out, show up to the world. Why is that we can't see mistakes in the world, in the corporate world, as same as wardrobe failure? Taking your stride. To not now carry this burden and worry about something that people have moved on. So let me come to us as men. We must be the kind of men and boys with whom all women and girls feel safe in all aspects of their life. We talk about GBV. GBV doesn't come from Mars and lands. GBV comes from us as men. We create the fear. In every aspect of women's lives, there is fear. In the workplace, at school, universities, in the cultural setting, all of that. We have to hold ourselves accountable as men and talk about this. When I started writing about this 15 years ago, it was taboo. How could you write about it? You're a guy. How could you? Yes, I am. But it can't be in our name. As men, we have to be standing up against this. We've got to be the generation of men that will remove this fear that women have. We can't be celebrating 30 years of freedom when more than half of the population lives in fear. They can't wear what they want. They can't go where they want. They can't run where they want. All of that. These are things we have to speak about openly. And not say we are against GBV as long as it doesn't affect my friend. Then you're not against GBV. No, we're against GBV as long as it's not a prominent person. No, against GBV as long as it's not my relative. We're against GBV regardless of who the perpetrator is. Attending business development or similar events as entrepreneurs or business people is not an invitation to be harassed. It's not an invitation for sexual innuendo. It's not an invitation for unwarranted and unwelcome sexual proposals. We as men create that environment. Think of it as your daughter, think of it as your wife, think of it as your mom. They must be in an environment where they can have any business meeting. And you are not sizing them up and down in that meeting. You're seeing them as professionals. Then our wives and partners. Our wives and partners are not spectators in our fame, in our game. They're not mere supporters to our success. No, just people to be loved and protected. Although that's important. They are and should always be full and equal partners in our relationships and marriages. I had a wonderful thing as I was driving through where a guy said to break this, he broke the stereotype that his wife has to take his surname. And he decided he's going to take her surname. Wow. I thought, wow, this guy. And he said, Home Affairs almost fainted. They're like, it can't be done. It's like, why? Why? So these are the things we have to ask ourselves. Are we creating that environment? Then I want to come to your role as internal auditors. We have an ethical crisis in this country in all aspects. Public sector, private sector, religious institutions, sports institutions. People have made it their job to cheat the system. And social media makes it even bigger because you have to show a new bag every day. Hey, brother Victor, those bags, né? You have to take a bond for these bags. So if you do the maths, if somebody is showing a new bag every week, do the maths. Either they're borrowing somewhere or they're stealing from somewhere. Because if the salary doesn't match that, something is wrong. Something is wrong, right? So in your role, you have to have fidelity to principle, where sometimes you will have personal and professional consequences. Sometimes you have to make difficult and unpopular decisions. Sometimes you become a whistleblower against wrongdoing. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullying and bad behavior. Sometimes you have to expose corruption. And sometimes you have to question accepted principles, accepted practice. Guys, in your role as internal audit, if being loved and being liked is your personal passion point, you are in the wrong profession. You are in the wrong profession. Because you have to love the principles. You have to love the values. You have to love what is right. You have to love integrity. If everybody else doesn't love it, that's okay. You are still in love with these things. Then you're not lonely when you take those steps. But if you want to be popular and be loved by everybody, then you are going to sacrifice all of these. At these moments, it becomes lonely. You'll be maybe isolated or ostracized. This requires you to have congruence in terms of demonstrating your values. Talking about your values and living them are two different things. So when you are doing these audits, you are doing it in a much hostile environment than any of your predecessors has ever done. Because there's so much riding on these things. To some, it's a big bonus. To some, it's a big thing of achieving great results. To some, they want to accumulate wealth. To some, there's a big contract. All of these things, have got nothing to do with you. You just have to call it as you see it. That's like a referee in a big game. The referee cannot say, no, this is a big game, whatever. If it's a handball, it's a handball. If it's offside, it's offside. This is where it's lonely to stand up and know what is my role. You know, we're talking about 30 years of democracy. We might not remember that we had, what's his name, Chris Hani, who died. And when Chris Hani died, the first question that was asked, where were the bodyguards? But when we see bodyguards, we see them as a nuisance. But they have a role to play. You are the guards. If you can't play that role, then we can't sleep well at night. Because who shall guard the guards? You are that conscience in society. So daily we're witnessing corporate scandals and political scandals. In disbelief, we question why no one stood up to these wrongdoings. Slowly dawns on us that through fear, because they were also larger than life leaders, people blindly follow them. In such environments, we are faced with the choice: fidelity to principle or fidelity or cult of personality. This is the choice. To be in the internal audit is about fidelity to principle, no matter what. When that decision comes, what choice will you make? When your integrity is tested, what will you do? Will you succumb to corporate or political pressure or give in to fear? Will you accept ill-gotten benefits or will you follow the righteous path, regardless of the consequences? This is the noble profession that you are now part of. And it's even more important than it was before, because it was never thought of before that people would do the kinds of things that they're doing. Now they're doing it. We know they're doing it. They've told us they're going to do it. We see them do it. So don't walk in there with a naive thing that, oh, people are good. Hey, people are good, but they are governance rules. Let them follow the rules. Let them be good and follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules, then. So my plea, if you lose anything I've said today, in terms of your job, this is about courage over comfort. Choosing what is right over what is fun. This is choosing to practice our values than simply professing them. Then you are in internal audit. And you can grow and get young people who are at university to want to study and take up this profession of internal audit. If we all say we are against corruption, but we're not doing anything to fight corruption, this network that's being formed today is one of the parts of a movement against corruption. Let me be very clear, in case I'm not clear. Anybody here who's a Catholic? Catholic, even non-practicing? Yeah, we've got one. Who's the most senior person in the Catholic Church? The Holy Father, right? So there's the story of this Holy Father who had a heart attack. And so they asked if people would donate their heart to the Holy Father. So if you donate your heart to the Holy Father, you won't read the newspaper reports the next day, right? So it takes a lot of commitment to donate your heart to somebody. So they wrote a note to the entire Catholic community. They didn't know how many people would come. But you know what? Thousands came to the Vatican City to come and donate their heart to the Holy Father. But now how would they choose? This old cardinal said, let's take a feather. You know a feather? You take a feather and then you blow the feather. The person upon whom it lands, that's the person who's blessed to help the Holy Father. But the feather could not land. So this old cardinal even asked all the other cardinals and the bishop, all go there. He says, we all know I've got a dodgy heart. You all go there. But still, the feather could not land. Why? Because all these committed Catholics would all come from all over the world to save the Holy Father. Every time the feather came, they were blowing up. So we all say we are against corruption, but corruption is growing. We all say we are against crime, but crime is growing. Because not enough people are prepared to take the steps to fight against corporate malfeasance, to fight against corporate greed, to fight against corruption in the public sector, abuse of state resources and all of that. So if you become part of the internal audit movement, you do that knowing that there are risks. You know you'll be ostracized. You know you'll be called names. But you say, living a life of integrity, creating a culture where there is honesty and integrity, and creating a country that will not suffer from corruption is part of what I want to be involved in. Akona and Ria have started the movement. Are you willing to join? But understanding how big this moment is. Let me end off by saying there's a big thing on the 29th of May. But my challenge to you, in your sphere of influence, in your environment of control, what will you do beyond May 29th to bring about change in your environment? Rather than worry about them, what will we do in the environments we control? So for me, I start with these words from Martin Luther King. He says, when you look at modern men, we have to face the fact that modern men suffers from a kind of poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast with the scientific and technological abundance. He says, we've learned to fly the air as birds. We've learned to swim the sea as fish, yet we haven't learned to walk the earth as brothers and sisters. We live in the most unequal country in the world. This is not sustainable. In our sphere of influence, is there something we can do to make a difference? Sometimes it's a bit of your money, sometimes a bit of your time, sometimes a bit of your knowledge to do something. Just like Akona and Ria have started this movement. There's something else you can do. Giving a bit of money to the school where you studied, giving something, all of these things can be done. I can tell you today is Friday. There are establishments where millions are going to be spent tonight. If people could take even 0.5% of that is spent there and put them to causes that make our society much more equitable, we could go quite far. So our country needs new leaders. Leaders who are neither imprisoned by ideology nor shackled by our past, but who are inspired by the vision of the future we can have. I'm not here to worry and lament about what's going wrong. My job is, can I do something? Can I do something? This is a choice. Each one of you has a choice. What can I do? Can I be part of these new leaders? Not only worried about the political pieces and who gets in and who doesn't get in. In our sphere of influence, what can we do? And I will leave you with a sense of what should we do with these leaders. These leaders should be able to build smart partnerships, to take advantage of the latest technologies, to attract the best talent, to solve our intricate problems, and to unleash the tremendous potential of our youth and entrepreneurs. As I said, my job, my calling is to produce the next layer of leaders. And I've now partnered with the Henley Business School to have a youth leadership summit. We started the first one last year. We're having a second one this year where we invite top CEOs in the country to spend time with 250 top young people in the country. And these CEOs have all gladly agreed to spend time with these young people. The reason why I was trying to do this was I became worried that, every time come June 16, old guys like Victor will come and then they'll say, yeah, I was sorting the bomb on June 16. And then talk about that. You're like, okay, are we going to talk the same story all the time? My point is, where are we going? We are so focused on where we come from, which is important. But where are we going? We need leaders with vision. Leaders who can tell us where we're going and engage young people in terms of that. So Ria and Akona, as one politician said, after speaking for 3 days, there concludes my opening remarks. I thank you.
There's questions for you.
All these questions.
Remember, these are auditors. They're not going to let you off so easily.
So we're going to start with our Q&A session. So how we're going to manage it, we'll start like with the room and then I will tackle then the questions from the people that are online. So if you're online and you'd like to raise your hand and speak to Lincoln, please raise your hand and then we'll unmute your mic. So Lincoln, really thank you so much for the pearls of wisdom. I think all of us, we are really inspired. I was hearing a lot of ums and ahs, and Ria was saying, "What's happening?" Everyone is saying all the time, and really, it's testament of the wonderful message that you've got for all of us, and I think all of us as well. We've got takeaways, right, in terms of like changing our policies, making sure that we are integrating all of these useful tips. Because what I liked was that it was so practical, especially when we spoke about the policies, because it's real. I look at it as well from my point of view, from an auditor point of view. When I'm doing an HR audit, those are the things that we actually tend to overlook because we want to see, do we have like duplicate employees and all of these things. So really, Lincoln, really, really appreciate it. So we'll take questions, comments from the crowd. The floor is yours.
There was one question on the app that said, how do we replicate Lincoln? So, so I don't know if you have any wisdom on that one.
Hi. I'm Colin's friend. I was going to do it online, but I'm glad I came and I had to listen to this jam for Mali. So I just want to know, how do you replicate?
I think that for me, replication is about unearthing the many more Lincolns that are there, because they are there. At 18 years old, I'd been expelled from school. I was in and out of jail. I was trying to leave the country. I was in and out of court. We were a group of very angry young people. What we wanted to do at the time was to bring the country to a standstill. We wanted to make the country ungovernable and the apartheid system unworkable. But my father engaged with us. He looked beyond the anger. And he said, when are you going back to school? And we had not been studying for 2 years. And I said to him, no, our demands have not been met. Our leaders are in jail. And then he said to me, it's not the potency of the petrol bomb that you're throwing against the police. It's not the size of the stone you're throwing against the army. It's the quality of education you can get. It's the principles you can imbibe. It's the values you can aspire to. Because he made me realize that leadership was not the excitement I was doing. It was the enormous responsibility. There are many young people like me. All they need is a platform and an engagement. If we don't engage them, they'll bring the house down. We have to engage them. Two, there are many other people doing amazing work, but we don't showcase it. What gets showcased on social media is all the charlatans. All the scholars will come there, they'll show all the ill-gotten gains. They'll show the boats in Dubai and all that nonsense. What I try and do is to use whatever platform I have to tell an alternative story. To tell an alternative story that you can succeed without stealing. You can succeed without destroying other people's lives. And so that's how we are replicating ourselves. I'm saying we start with movements like this one. You replicate. There are going to be amazing auditors who might have heard this today who says, I'm part of this movement. What are they going to do? Then another group says, I want to be another movement. And suddenly we have that. So for me, replication is having more of things like this. And then in our own environments, let's challenge one another when we see wrongdoing. I'm sure in my WhatsApp groups, many WhatsApp groups have been created around me because there are certain things we say in our WhatsApp group that's not acceptable. You will not post this, you will not post that, you will not speak like that. right? Because you have to stand up for something, right? If there are sexist comments being made in my WhatsApp group and I'm quiet, I'm part of it. If there are racist comments being made in my WhatsApp group, I'm not saying no, I'm part of it. If people are trending and sending a sexual picture of somebody, and you understand? So those are the things. How shall I raise my own children? I'm trying to replicate through my kids, how I raise them up, and so on. So all of the work that I'm trying to do with my foundation is to take all of the work I've been doing and put them under an umbrella. But again, each one of us can start small and do these things. And man, you get the biggest satisfaction with that kind of work that you do. Start small. Whatever it is, start small. We started something small today. Believe me, in 3 years' time, you look back at this moment where people proudly say, I'm an internal auditor. Proudly. Not, what do you do? I'm in the accounting profession. Do not say I'm an internal auditor. Proudly. Right? There are many business people who say, you're going to an internal audit meeting? Yes, I am. Again, you demonstrate some of those things by your behavior. In my own organization, if I treat internal audit in a hostile way, guess what happens? Throughout the organization, it permeates, right? But if I treat internal audit as professionals, then I expect everybody to do the same. So we have agency as leaders in what we do, what we say, how we behave. We can replicate a lot of these things because there are more of us than the thieves. It's just that we're silent. They speak every day. They hog the limelight in the court. It's them every day. Ordinary people's cases cannot be heard. The courts are full of the stories of the thieves. I mean, I leave you with this note. Maybe I'm the only one who's saying this. Just to see the absurdity of some of these things. There's a guy. The guy has been convicted of rape and murder. Gets sentenced to a life in prison. Okay? Life in prison. Then the guy escapes. He's caught in another country. Brought back. Then the guy appeals and says he wants to be released on bail. Are you following me? There is a court case. There are lawyers. I don't know who's paying the lawyers. This is somebody who was convicted for life, but there are senior advocates there, and there's a court case, and the court case, after deliberation, they say he's denied bail. He appeals, which means there's another case, and another case. That is where we're asking ourselves some questions. Where are the ethics in this whole thing? If somebody is in prison for life, how can they be appealing for bail? Maybe somebody has to guide me, right? I don't know. So for my sins, my background, I don't normally talk about, but I think I'm in a safe environment here. My background is law and banking. And I don't normally talk about it because sometimes we are misunderstood, these two professions. And we have always tried to understand why, until I found this story of an old man who, before he died, they say he wanted to see two people. And everybody assumed he wanted to see the dominion, the predicant, or the preacher, or the pastor. He says, no, I want to see my lawyer and my banker. And then when there was someone, they say, oh, Holy One, why did you choose us? We feel so special and so honored that you asked us before you die. He says, my children, I've always followed the Lord Jesus Christ. I wanted to die with two thieves next to me. So my professions are misunderstood. So yeah. So we can replicate.
So you said leaders must create an environment where people can approach them without fear and have those conversations without any sleepless nights, which are like actually brilliant. It's very difficult, actually. But the other thing that you also said was that leaders want to check the time, their calendars to see where they spend their time. You find that we want to approach leaders at the public regard, but they're actually very busy. So my question is, how do leaders actually create time in their calendar so that they can actually spend time with people, get the sense that you were talking about, and be able to probably then replicate that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Mentor people, because yes, as they say, lift as we rise, because we also do want to be influential by looking at the people, but we cannot look at them from far.
Yeah.
We want to be close, have those conversations. How did you do it? But they're very busy. And they'll tell you, I'm very busy, I'm unavailable. You have to chase them, chase them. So I think that was very pertinent to say, is your calendar really a reflection of the type of leader?
Let me start with the calendar. So I started this journey many years back. And obviously, I was only known by a few people. And then, obviously, as time went on, more people got to know. But I was deliberate very early on that I will create time for the things that matter for me. And one of the things that matters was being visible and approachable and accessible to my staff. I also said I will bring my full self to work. Other leaders, they walk in and they put on a corporate mask in order to be successful. I refuse to have a corporate mask. I refuse to speak in corporate speak. I speak like this when I'm speaking with my friends. I speak like this when I'm in the audit committee. I speak like this when I'm speaking to an audience. I'm the same person. I don't want to be schizophrenic. Like, okay, now I'm going to speak like this. Now I'm going to speak like this. I can't do it. It makes no sense. So I wanted to be the same person. And I found that I was able to find enough time to study, to be in the family, to do all of those things because it was conscious. I have to be conscious. You also have to learn from your mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes I made was as I was moving up the corporate ladder, I was neglecting my family. Because we have this thing that the next promotion, family, just the next promotion, just the next deal. I've got you. Just then one day, the place where I work, Standard Bank, gave me an opportunity to go to Harvard, which was my father's dream when he was having that confrontation with me those years back. And when I got there, I was struck by a lecture by Professor Clay Christensen. The theme of the lecture was, how will you measure your life? And he told the story of many of the people that he studied with were now very successful, but they were lonely. They had successful businesses, but they had no marriages. They had no relationship with their children. And that was a very painful moment for me because I now had to reflect as to how much time have I spent with my family. And I realized that I'd sacrificed too much. And my wife had been telling me some of the stuff, but I wasn't hearing. Because when you're doing wrong things, you rationalize. My wife would say, you're not present. What are you talking about? I'm here. Meanwhile, I've just got the laptop, right? During a holiday. Or my wife would say, why are you not taking the kids to school? Because I saw Sim Chabalala and Peter Slebus taking kids to school. And I would say, the reason why people like Peter Slebus and Sim Chabalala can take the kids to school because there are people like me who do the work. So at the time, I was not conscious until that lecture. That lecture made me to reflect. And then when God gave me an opportunity to address the class at our graduation chosen by my colleagues, the theme of my graduation speech was towards a more balanced scorecard. Because we know the balanced scorecard in the work environment. What is that balanced scorecard in the family, in the community, and so on? That change in 2013 was the biggest change in my life. From that other big change of the Stones and the whatever. And yeah. So those two big moments in my life have shaped who I am today. I look back now and I say, the time I've invested in my family, the time I've invested with my staff, the time I've invested in my community projects, all of those things are giving me the joy. Because when I leave this world, nobody's going to care how many deals I did. Nobody's going to care what car I drive. What's written there is normally, here lies Lincoln Mali. It will hopefully say, good husband, wonderful father. It never ever talks about any of these corporate things. It never does. So what really matters was that. So I had to go and change, right? Similarly, in a work context, you can go look at your diary and consciously move certain meetings out to be available for your staff, to go and have a chat with them, meet them, engage them, whatever. It will be amazing. We've gone through, in my company, 3 years of one of the most revolutionary turnarounds of a company, right? When we walked in there, the company had a bad reputation, was losing money, it was burning cash, all of those things. But doing all of those things, which I would suppose is busy, right? But I never changed the principle of that 80-20. 80% of my time with staff and customers and 20% for the rest of the business. So I'm not arguing that people are not busy. I'm saying they must ask themselves, what are they busy with? That's more important than engaging with their teams, giving guidance, listening, all of that. So that's a choice I've made, and it makes a lot of sense for me. Then the second thing is the thing about the environment. You as a leader have to be introspective about what's your body language like. Because you can say I've got an open door, but your body language that you dare. You can say I like criticism, but it's your body language. Your body language tells a lot, right? It tells a lot whether you are open to criticism. Like what I normally say in my team is, guys, let's separate when we're having a debate to when I'm making a decision. When we're having a debate, the titles are off. Hey, we debate here. I know we debate there. Each person put your ideas on the table. But when I'm making a decision, I say, guys, we've had, now we're making a decision. The last thing I'll say is, I also say to leaders, maybe I'm the one who has not been blessed with this. In my career, I've got a lot of promotions. A lot. And the promotions sometimes come with a bit of money and all of that, right? And bigger status. But one thing they've never given me is extra IQ in every promotion. I don't know, maybe other leaders get it. Maybe there's a secret place. So your upward thing doesn't come with extra IQ. So the notion that you should be all-knowing because now you're at the pinnacle is false. You're learning all the time. Maybe other guys get it, but I've never got extra IQ with the increase, the letter of increase.
You are always so consistent with your message about leadership, and that we should show up and be the change that we want to be. My name is Mulubre, and I was undertaken in this. I have two things. It's more of a comment and a question, because I think you've put a challenge to us in internal auditors. And part of that is the challenge that as internal auditors, we equally also partner with the profession to make it happen. We are the ethical guidance, or rather the guidance that are needed in our country for us to realize. And I just wanted to share this because in the vision that we are looking for as the internal audit profession, it's really about building the ethical leadership and being that. Coming to my question, it's knowing that diversity is important, women representation is important. Research says it all the time. However, we're still not seeing it. Many women are in a lot of development programs from here to the moon and back. But for some reason, there's very few that get there. In your own opinion, what is delaying the progress? Thank you.
we interesting, we're going through that very debate at Lisaka now. And my job as a leader was to put a paper together to my colleagues, make the case for diversity, and create an environment for conversations. An environment for conversation has to be free for people to express themselves without fearing that they're going to be attacked. Because once they fear to be attacked, all that happens is they go back and then nothing happens. So I needed my fellow leaders to get into this conversation. And we identified, for example, 3 things together. Doesn't matter who did it. We now own it. We agreed that leaders go to their own pool of what they know when they are recruiting people, so that the pool is always wider and reflective of society, which means you're gonna get Black people, women, young people, and all of that. The second one was people were not sure whether they can make decisions between competence and potential, right? And we said, we want you to hire for both competence and potential. And no, you can make the decision that relates to potential. And again, sorry if you're not a rugby person, I'll ask you to go and watch Rasi, where he picked guys with potential. Those guys became World Cup winners because he believed in them. So when you pick somebody with potential, bring them in and they're part of the team. You don't say, that one is the potential people. You've made a decision. You bring that person with potential. The third thing we discussed was, is there a kind of salary challenge? If, for example, the groups you're looking for, like women or Black people or whatever, are coming at a higher premium, what should you do? We said, it's the market. We pay market-related salaries. In those situations where there's a premium, pay it, because that's the market. You're not saying, I will only pay Black people or women a premium. No, it says we pay market-related salaries. But in a situation where I have to pay a premium, I will pay. It's the same as when you're buying another company. You have a sense of what the price of the company is. Whatever you do, somebody will say you've overpaid or underpaid. It's an opinion. So you got to do that. The fourth thing we agreed on was the environment. We're going to work on what we call the software. It's not enough to just say, I've brought in women into the team. What's the environment? What's the software? How do we treat one another, right? The last piece was, when people are in leadership roles, particularly women, do they change the environment or they just become of the status quo? Do women adopt a male persona when they are now in charge and want to be more to outman the man, or create an environment where some of these things that we're talking about become front and center? What has changed now that there's a woman in charge? Because it should be, the environment should be better, but still perform. Because those who don't believe in women empowerment and women leadership will say, you appointed a woman, the company is not going to go anywhere. Show them the company is going to do even better. But the environment must also be good. So those are things that we've discussed. We're going with those things to our board. Then we're going to action them together. It's not I'm doing it, you're doing it. It's we are accountable as a leadership team to do that. And allow those who are learning to learn. Which is why this conversation where you invite men in the room for a discussion on women is one of the fundamental breakpoints. Because if men are not in the room and they are still the dominant group, all you're doing, you're protesting outside. You're outside. The people that you want to talk to are inside. You are talking outside. They can't hear you. Let there be a conversation. And let them make mistakes. Let them say things that you may find cringy, but you're able to teach. You're able to show a perspective. And I'll also say one other thing. I was having a conversation in one session with women where I was saying, it's also about when to say things how. Like at home, I'll say to my wife, the thing we fear as men is when somebody says we need to talk. You say that we want to run because we don't know in the fullness of everything, what would it be? The second thing now, you want to say, want to talk as Chelsea is about to play. You're not being effective because I'm not going to listen. So part of this dialogue is how are we going to have this discussion with men at the right environments? Because we need to bring them on our side, right? To get them on our side to make the changes that we've got. So those are some of the things we're doing, and they're practical in our environment. And we're going to measure them, but we've committed to them as a leadership team.
So online is also burning up. There's a lot of questions that are running out of time behind share.
That's okay.
So there are a couple of comments that I just want to touch on. Babala says, I just want to commend the open-mindedness Mr. Madi approached the whole topic around women and sensitive issues that affect women on a daily basis. Also, Amanda is saying that she likes how you are taking how men can support women in the workplace. There's a question from Karabo Mitchell. She is asking, Mr. Lincoln, what are the tools that you can advise on overcoming imposter syndrome and taking up your space in the workplace?
Yeah, so Ria said I had a book. So in the book, one of the things I talked about was imposter syndrome and how I suffered from it. Because as I was growing in my career, you can imagine at my age, those days I was probably the only black person in the room, right? Almost every meeting, I was the only black person. And in those days, it was hard because sometimes you will say something and somebody looks, it speaks, right? So you had to go and show competence and all of those things over the years because you were fighting sometimes prejudice, sometimes fear, or sometimes ignorance, right? As time went on. But the last one I spoke about was when I was promoted to run card and payments at Standard Bank. And this was one of the more technical parts of the business. And it's not an area I knew about. Now they say I'm going to be head of card. I wasn't sure this was the right decision. I'm sure everybody else didn't think it was the right decision. And then when you go through those Wimbledon moments, your doubts creep in. You feel less worthy of the role. And then something happens. And those people who are your detractors say, aha, you were not the right person. You start to believe them and not believe the people who picked you, the people who supported you. That's when you start to have an imposter syndrome. But then I realized that every time I've gone out of imposter syndrome, I've gone back to the following things. One, who am I? What do I bring to the party? Let me be me and not a replica of somebody else. Two, the people who've chosen me believe in me. Why am I not listening to them and only listening to the ones who don't like me? Thirdly, mistakes or something that goes wrong is not a definition of who I am. It's just a small part of who I am. Fourth thing, I must learn from my mistakes and keep growing because there was nobody who was born in that job. Everybody had to learn, and suddenly they are good. That's the tools I use to get out of that. When you now got out of it, when imposter syndrome comes, you see it from a mile away. When that doubt comes, you're like, I got you. I know it's you, right? Then you start to project a positive image. Does a positive image mean you're lying? No. A positive image takes the full total of who you are and does not celebrate the mistakes, celebrate the whole of you. Let me maybe give you an example practically. Anybody here who doesn't have a profile picture? All of us have a profile picture, right? Do you take the profile picture before you sleep? Right? Do you take it just when you wake up? You take it at the right time and you work on the bloody thing, right? You work on it. Why? Because this is how you want to represent yourself to the world. Now, imagine I have words with my wife, she has paragraphs with me. Do I put the picture of the fight on my profile picture? But we had a fight. So I'm lying to the people. But the fight is not the sum total of our relationship. So I project the best. So I'll put up that picture. You all know, you'll say, love lives here. But we had a fight because that's the image you want to portray. Am I making sense? So when you've gone through those difficulties, you have to go back to what is positive and not exude the negativity of what has gone wrong. The same as with your kids. Those of you who've got kids, you know there are days. There are days. Oh, you want to really strangle them. But what are you going to post? Bundles of joy. Right? So when you go through imposter syndrome, it's the negativity. And you get into a negative spiral. You have to get out of it, go back to those steps, and then project that confidence in who you are and what you're going to do, and not allow yourself to be minimized by what has gone wrong or by other people's negative sentiments about you.
Lincoln, what advice do you have for a young, recent internal audit graduate who is eager, who has an eager to have a meaningful impact in the corporate and in their community, but they do not know how to go about it?
So one of the things that I will say to young people is, when you start, it is hard because you want to already get there and you want to already get everything figured out. None of the people who are senior here had it figured out. Young people think we had it figured out. We didn't have it figured out. At the beginning, you're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to, what I've tried to write about in the books are all the mistakes and the things that I did when I was young. Working in a law firm, not knowing what to do, and the mistakes and the whatever. It's part of the journey. Naturally, people want to see where the movie ends. Your career in Netflix is in episode 1 of a four-season series. Journey with the series, because you will not know what the end will look like. You will make mistakes, you will stumble. Find people you can work with. Find people who can be your advisors, both internally in your organization or outside. But do not already try and project what the season ending will be. For example, if somebody's dating, I know, Pravik, we have not been in that dating thing for years, but I'm sure when we're dating, you can't in the first date be thinking how many kids you're going to have. It's not going to work. So in the beginning, journey and enjoy the journey and learn from it, but don't just be fixated on what the end will be, because you will not know. Each journey is going to be very different. When I did law, people thought I would be a great lawyer. After 1 year, I quit law. And that shocked my parents. I mean, it was a scandal. But I knew law was not for me. I loved the law, but I didn't want to be a lawyer. Right? So you're going to get to those things where sometimes you zigzag in your career.
As in everywhere, even in the, and I know you asked it for a couple of more minutes, so it is engage with the audience. Yes. I think there was about 4 hands that went up. But really, really, thank you for that.
I'm very happy you're not charging us for it. Here's a little thank you for you.
Oh.
To just say we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is really memorable.
And I will declare it when I know what we have.
Less than 100 brands.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so sorry, my friend, after a keynote speaker like that. But Ingrid, I really would love you to come and share your career with us. And what I mentioned earlier on is this was one of the ladies that encouraged me to do what we've done. And I didn't realize we're starting a movement, but I feel the responsibility of the movement. Yeah, so thank you for that. So Ingrid, please come and share with us a couple of minutes around your career, your achievements, how you did it, your courage, please.
I'm not so sure about courage. We'll give it back.
You definitely have courage. Thank you.
So I must admit, I rather wish I'd been the opening act today. It's a little bit difficult to come on after a superstar and tell a boring story of a career in internal auditing. But Lincoln, I really hope that before I retire, I'll have the opportunity to be mentored by you. Thank you for an awesome presentation. It's such an honor to be one of the first speakers at this movement that we've started. About a year ago, when Ria came and spoke to me and said, I want to talk about women in internal auditing, I said, oh, that's awesome. And you've heard that she was talking about her views about women who have come back into the profession. Akona talked about her views as a woman who had stepped out for a short period and came back and felt that she was a little bit behind. But I looked at it as a woman who didn't have women mentors and women guides in this profession. I wanted to see us as women who, when we've reached a level, can turn back, put a hand out and pull someone up with us. In my profession, I've had the very, very good opportunity of being able to build internal auditors. I'm so proud because two of the future heads of internal audit that I've had an opportunity to guide and mentor are in this room. There are people who I'm so proud to see how they've grown. The one I met 10 years ago, she walked into an interview, and I don't think in her wildest dreams did she imagine that 10 years on, she'd still be in the same job. But in addition to which, how she'd grow over those 10 years, how she would take on leadership, how she would grow people herself. And in that growing phase, what we see is when we bring in new internal auditors into our environments, from the most junior trainee internal auditors straight out of university to the most senior internal auditor who's stepping into that head of internal audit, holy grail position. We give internal auditors an opportunity to grow when we give them a hand and help them. So to your point earlier, somebody raised the question about heads of internal audit and managers and executives are so busy. I want executives to make the time, like Lincoln has, to talk nonsense with people.
Amen.
To ask them what's going on in their lives, to understand what they're studying, to understand what they're struggling with. Last week, a young lady who works at Sasfin left our service, and I was so upset, but she was given an opportunity at another company that we couldn't compete with. And she brought me a note, and I sobbed as I read it. Because what she wrote in that note was about the fact that I had given her time. She could come into my office at 7:30 in the morning and say, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? And an hour later, we were still clicking and going. But we had talked about the thing that she needed to understand at that moment. We had talked about how she could grow, what she could study, what she was struggling with at that moment, what cake she was going to buy for her dad's birthday that night. But she had time. And that time was an opportunity for her to grow. Now, I'm no be-all, know-all in everything of internal audit, but I've been around the block for quite a long time. It's hard to believe how long I've been internal audit when you consider I'm only 29. But I have been in internal auditing or the thereabouts for 24 years. I've been a head of internal audit this year for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
I'm kind of tired of the job. In that time, I've had an opportunity to see internal auditors come straight out of university, get their driver's licenses, buy their first cars, put down a deposit on their first homes, get their second and third degrees, their professional designations. They move through the profession into supervisors and managers and seniors. And that only comes if we commit to doing it. So if I tell you my boring tale, I studied to become an accountant. I was going to be a bean counter. And I went in to do articles at ABSA. I was going to become an associate general accountant. And if you do articles in a bank, as you well know, there is no 3 years in one department. You move around. And I spent 3 months in internal audit in my first year, and 9 months in my second year, and a week here and 2 weeks there every time I got an opportunity. It was the one department in my articles that I learned something in. But it was also the opportunity where I wasn't just seen as a trainee. I was given an opportunity to have a say, to have an opinion, to ask questions. So when it came to finding a real job post articles, I had an opportunity to look at becoming a budget accountant or an internal auditor, and I chose internal auditor. You know, when they talk about 2 roads diverged in a wood, well, there 2 roads diverged. I can't imagine what my life would have looked like if I'd become a budget accountant, but I became an internal auditor. And I think the thing that has sort of described my career has been the fact that I've jumped at opportunities. As an internal auditor, I'm completely and utterly risk averse. If anybody says I want to see your policy, I want to see your business spec, I want to see your strategy, I want to see it all before you even consider stepping out. But as an internal auditor who was growing a career, when an opportunity was presented, I said, thank you, I'll have it. And sometimes it was a mistake, and sometimes it wasn't. But each time I took those opportunities, I grew. So I left from a trainee internal auditor / accountant and became an internal auditor at First Rand, where I worked for 4.5 very happy years. I went from being a junior internal auditor to a senior internal audit manager in 2 years. That is a record, even if I say so myself. The reason was that I worked so hard, not only in the workspace, but to craft my profession. I wanted to be the absolute best internal auditor that I could be. I read everything there was to be read. I did everything there was to be done so that I could really do this job well. But the other thing that I did was I audited by walking around. I got to know people. I got to see people. I got to understand what the problems were on the ground, and I got to understand who contributed to whose problems. And by doing that, as an internal auditor, I wasn't just saying, "Ooh, you've got a problem. That's wrong." I was able to provide solutions. My promotion to a senior internal audit manager came because I helped a subsidiary of one of First Rand's businesses clear an issue that was South Africa's fault. I was the only person over a period of 3 or 4 years who had bothered to take the time to understand what the problem was, and then actually went to see the person who had caused the problem and said, "Can you undo?" That's how I got a promotion. And it sounds really easier, but it wasn't. It was hard work. But in addition to that, getting that promotion meant that I went from managing little old me to a team of 45 people. It's a very big jump. We talk about leadership, but we also must understand that management is where the title is. And there is not enough teaching of how to be a manager and how to be a leader before we give people those opportunities to be managers and to be leaders. Many people think that when you're a manager, you have to micromanage. You have to know what time they arrived at work and what time they left and what they've spent on a telephone. That's not management. Management is bringing out the absolute best of the people who work with you, making them want to come to work tomorrow, making them want to give you the output that you're paying them for, making them want to do it even if you're not paying them to do it. When you ask them to come in on a Saturday morning to visit and see a disaster recovery test, that they don't go, "Oh, are you going to pay me overtime?" That they do it because they know that next week, when their child is ill or when their child is in a concert or when they are graduating, you won't ask them to work it back. Management is about bringing people to deliver in the best possible circumstances. Leading them is to give them the vision that they're going to follow so that they want to do it on an ongoing basis. And in providing that leadership vision is making them want to be leaders themselves. You need to provide an opportunity for people to grow, and you need to provide them the example that they have and that they're going to follow in the long run. I don't want you to ever be that person that they go, well, now I know what I'm not going to be when I'm a manager. You want them to take the lessons from what you've done and say, I can build on that. We talked about men being in the audience, and it was very surprising to see your faces, but very nice nevertheless. I've never had a female boss. I've never had a female manager. But I've had a number of men who've made a huge difference in my career, whether for good or bad. The first head of internal audit who realized that I wasn't actually so dumb. He didn't know what my name was, but he'd seen that audit report that I wrote and thought it was a good one. He actually said to my manager, you know that girl who wrote that report? Tell her she can take her family to supper. I thought, well, that's lovely. Still doesn't know what my name is, but great. To the chief executive officer of Bank of Athens, when I started there in 2007, I'd been a senior manager in internal audit, but I certainly was no head of internal audit, who gave me my first chance to be a head of internal audit anyway, who gave me the opportunity to experience things differently, to see them from that different angle. To the next head of to the next chief executive officer at Natal Bank, who sat in an interview with me and was so interested in what little old me, had to say. At the same time, there was a female head of human resources in the interview, and I'll never forget. She was sitting like this, checking her nails, looking out the window. She seemed so bored with what I had to say. And as a woman, I was more concerned with the fact that that woman was not interested in what I had to say, and so sure I wasn't going to get the job, rather than the fact that this man actually seemed interested. So I got the job, and she didn't last much longer. 11 years later, I applied for a job at Sasfin, and you know, you read things on LinkedIn and they talk about, oh, you know, if a woman sees 10 things on a list when she applies for a job, if she can do 5 of them, she goes, oh, I can't apply for that job because there are 5 I can't do. Yeah. But if a man applies for a job and he goes, well, there's 5 things I can do. I thought, oh, what nonsense. But when I applied for the Sasfin job, I kid you not, I got the job spec. And there were 2 foolscap pages of what this head of internal audit was going to be expected to do. And one single solitary little bullet point of something that I went, oh, no, I can't do that. And the man who had the job before me said to me, are you stupid? You can do everything on that list, and that one bullet point you can learn. We as women need to have more confidence in ourselves. We need to understand that if you're going to apply for a job where you can do everything, you're overqualified. Don't apply for it. You need to be challenged in the opportunities that you seek for yourself. You need to be challenged in the way that you do things so that you grow. You cannot grow if you're not challenged. You cannot grow if you are not experiencing friction, because it's when you're rubbed that you become polished. Those difficulties and those challenges that you go through are the things that are going to build you into the person you are. I've been head of internal audit at Sasfin for 3 years, and many of you will know that we've been in the papers for all of the wrong reasons. But I, as the head of internal audit, have had an opportunity to be involved in processes to understand what happened and processes to clean up afterwards. Those learning opportunities have been phenomenal, and they've given me scope for growth in my career because I took the opportunities. Each of you will be faced with opportunities. You will be faced with challenges. You'll be faced with friction. If you face them and take the polishing, learn from the challenges and take the opportunities that come to you, you will grow and you will reach pinnacles that you've hoped for. I know that I was supposed to talk for 15 minutes, but I really don't want to put you to sleep, and I want you to give lots of opportunity to network and to talk with Lincoln. But it's been lovely to be part of the first start of the session, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Well, you're not going anywhere yet. Because we're going to allow the question. She thinks she's getting away. She's not. There's definitely a couple of questions for you. There. Oh, you see, you are a SHEroes.
Allow the guys at the back that had their hands up.
Yeah, they were really desperate. KG, you guys, please. They were so eager to ask questions earlier on.
You're going to have to shout. I'm a little bit old and deaf.
It's quite difficult being in leadership. I want just to understand from having vulnerability and impact, why is it frowned upon? But at the same time, when you don't want anything a toughie like them, they normally are, you're seen as an impact person. How do you navigate just being an impacted person and having vulnerability in leadership? I would also like to hear it from a male perspective.
You're not escaping either. I'm not sure they're all going to be able to hear me, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I think as women, we struggle with that balance between being aggressive and seem to be manly, being able to stand up and look like a man in a meeting. You'll see how we dress. Women wear suits and trouser suits when we go to board meetings, so we look like we're professional and we're strong and assertive. But I've told my staff over a number of years, you are what you are. You do not need to be aggressive to be a good internal auditor, but you need to be assertive. You cannot be stepped on, but you don't need to be rude. You do not need to be abrasive. You do not need to shout. You do not need to swear, and you do not need to be the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes being the quietest voice in the room is the best way to be, because everyone quiets down to listen to the person who's whispering. Your ability to make yourself heard when you need to be heard is critical. You don't need to be the voice that's always heard. My teams will tell you that I often go to meetings and say very little, but it's the times when I do say something that people go, oh, she said something, and they've made sense in that piece, because I've taken the time to listen to what they were talking about and understand the concepts. I didn't have to shout, and I didn't have to scream, and I didn't make myself so heard that they thought it was just noise. You as a woman are in a position to be feminine, but not girly. You don't need to be frilly to be seen as a woman, and you don't need to be frilly to be seen as feminine. But you need to be comfortable with who you are. One of my favorite sayings is, I'm fit and fat and fine. Yes. People say, oh no, you mustn't say that. I am what I am. I can go on diet for the next 25 years and be chronically starving for the rest of eternity. It's not going to make me a better auditor or a better person. It's just going to make me grumpy and hangry. What we need is a person who's comfortable with who they are in that moment. And if you can stand up in a boardroom, in a team meeting, in a venue like this, and be comfortable that you might not be an oil painting, you might be a little large, your outfit is not as perfect as you would have liked it to have been, and your hair looks terrible. Well, tough. It's what is coming out of your mouth that is what is important.
Sure. I must just say second because it is true for both men and women. The thing of being the right leaders is the thing that matters, because exactly that message is the message I want men to understand, that the world that is being demanded of us is an empathetic world. It's a caring world. Our own kids demand that of us. So the old command and control thing is not going to make it. It's not going to make it. So people who are stuck in that old thing are not going to make it. So one of the things Ingrid said was she cried. Did you hear that? Crying in the corporate world is seen as weakness. That's nonsense. I cry all the time. If somebody doesn't accept me crying, tough for them. Because this is who I bring my full self to work. I cry, I laugh, I whatever. What is important, are you being effective? I take you back to when I was young and I was the only black person in the room. For me, what mattered was, am I being effective? If, for example, there were 5 people and 2 of them, I think, could carry the message, I went the message through them. What was important was the message. Because if the 2 of them were more influential, I'll get the message through them. In the end, the message has been landed. So it's finding a way of building coalitions. So back to Ingrid's thing, if you don't have men in the room, you are putting people out. If you're trying to bring transformation and the big people in the companies are white men, bring them in the room, right? Bring those people in the room, that will help. And one of the things I've said to my son, or in my son's school, because this thing of managing and leading is same as parenting. So what I've said to my son is, we must be tough, or I'll be tough with you without losing the tenderness, and be tender without losing the toughness. An unbalanced scale will hinder your progress. So if as a parent, I'm a good news parent, my children will not know what's right and wrong. If I'm a bad news parent, they will not know even when they're doing well. So what is right, what is wrong is wrong. So bring yourself to work. If whoever you are, and I love the thing that Ingrid is saying, I try and be myself at work. I cannot be somebody else in order to be acceptable. The only thing I want to know from Ingrid, who was the CEO from McIntyre?
Dave Brown.
Oh my word. Dave Brown was one of the legends. Worked at Sun Bank Commercial for many years. And again, these are people that, are part of your journey. Each one of you, I go back to that thing where I said, when I look at the leadership model, I look at those people who wanted you to shine and succeed. And then I want you to think back to Ingrid's face when she talked about the 2 people that she gave opportunities to who will be heads of internal audit. That's why I say to leaders, please don't tell me about your title. Tell me who you produced. Tell me who are the people you created opportunities for. Then you tell me about the leader. But yeah, secondly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lucy Mpetani. Earlier question that I had when Lincoln was speaking has already been touched on. I just want to make 2 comments quickly. Firstly, thank you guys for being authentic. Thank you, Maria. Ingrid, thank you for being authentic. I think the message today for some of us is probably a little bit like 10 years too late. I would have appreciated it if I had it 10 years ago, because it talks to the point that Lincoln was making around bringing men in a room where women are facing challenges because we create the problems in the office anyway, right? We are the ones that are deciding in most cases where they get promoted or not, but we do not know what the challenges are. Especially to the example of coming back from maternity leave. So that's the first comment. Thank you for being authentic. Second comment, you spoke about the, the first job of a leader is to love people. And you guys genuinely love people. And this is based on just listening to what you had to say when comments were being made. And then last one, Ria and Akona, thank you so much for bringing the men in the room. There's always a little men's the hoota there, women are not there, and there's women's month meetings where it's just women, and we hear by the grapevine that you guys are causing problems, but you don't know what it is. And here we have an opportunity as guys to actually hear it from you guys and understand what the challenge is, so that when we go back tomorrow, whether we are leading or we are being led, because yes, we do get led by women, we lead women, and that is the crux of the whole situation. So we'll do better. And thank you so much. I hope you invite more men in the future. And they can take
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Because of time.
We already. Yeah, no, one more and then can wrap up.
It's like
There's a movement. This is a movement. It's a movement. I like the movement.
Morning, everyone. My question is to God in and the question is internal auditors were drivers of agricultural changes and digital controls and governance. So how do we change the narrative or bridge the gap between corporate or collaboration between corporate and public sector? Because public sector impacts each and every one of us. When there is no service delivery, it impacts us. Even whether you do more in corporate, but the robots are not working, but impacted. But we see that in public sector, the narrative is different. There is no experts, there's no, we can't attract talent in public sector, but we expect things to work. So how do we then bridge that gap or collaborate or say in our respective professions, I'm an expert in this, how do I put it down in the environment that you're working, because it's going to impact us each and every day? And to Ria and Agona, does the SHEroes movement or is going to move to local governments, to internal auditors for municipalities, internal auditors for departments? Because I believe we need to work collaboratively in order for the economy to function. And yeah, that's.
There was also a question beside.
Thank you so much. I love you, Ingrid. She practiced what she preaches. I chatted to her this morning for 2 minutes and she was so warm. Thanks. Truth is, we learn by seeing, right? Than what is said. Most of us in the audit, from audit friends in particular, if there was a woman who was already in leadership, they were tough and all that, and you carry that with you to the corporate or wherever else you go. So my question is, how do we give each other's women feedback that is positive to say, we're going on the wrong trajectory? It could be that this is how you learned, but actually for you to be impactful and influential, you need to bring that empathy, that person to the working environment. And also just to balance, I mean, we're talking about if you're married, children and all that, and you find that you're reporting to someone that who is different, is difficult. They'll push you. And to find that balance is just not.
I've always said that I got it right. I think that for the most part, it's very hard to tell someone that they're doing the wrong thing. It's very easy to write an audit report for somebody who's there, a Lincoln, and say, oh, you've done that wrong. Fix it. And manage it. But it's very hard when it's the woman sitting at the desk next to you. But it's imperative that we do. There's a lady, I can't remember what her name is, but she created a presentation called Radical Candor. And it was based on the fact that she wanted people to be truthful without being hurtful. And in her instance, she was working at Google, I think it was, and she was making presentations regularly. And as she was speaking, she'd go, I think, and 25 later, she eventually finished her presentation. One of her managers came out afterwards and said, I think you need to work on your presentation skills. And she went, nothing wrong with my presentation skills, and she ignored it. And she did another presentation with another 50 ums. And another manager came to her and said to her, you have a problem. And she said, what's that? And they said, you say a lot. And she said, oh, don't be silly. And this person said to them, it makes you sound stupid. In that moment, it must have been horrible to hear that, but it made her a better speaker. If we are not prepared to have that conversation, to be radically candid with the people that we work with, we're not going to make them better. There's a lady in this room, and I don't want to embarrass her, but I met her in a meeting, and she had a tendency to say sorry every time she opened her mouth. As women, we tend to do it. It's if we've got to ask for permission to be heard. You don't have to ask for permission to be heard. You have the right to be at that table. Take up the space. And so I asked her after the meeting if she would just talk to me for 1 minute. And I said to her, please stop saying sorry. You don't have to be sorry to be here. And the same applies to every woman in this room. If there is something that you see in the person that you're sitting next to, that you're listening to, that you're working with, that you want to have grow into the next you, it's incumbent on you to point out that there's something that's not working. There's a difference between being cruel and having a little bit of cruelty to be kind. And you just need to find that balance.
Yeah, I wish I could work for England. There's a guy called Mteto Nyati. When I was leaving Standard Bank and I was going to join a company called Net1, I called Mteto Nyati because I couldn't talk to other people. I couldn't speak to one person. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. And he says, go there and go there now. Because he had left MTN and went to Altron. Altron was a company with deep problems. He left MTN CEO to go and run Altron. When he left Altron, Altron was a star company because he went to where the problems are, not run away from the problems. So I left Standard Bank to go to Net1. And at the time, it was a company with a bad reputation, losing money, burning cash. Today, we're Lisaka. We're Lisaka, and we're the biggest fintech in Southern Africa after 3 years. If I'd not gone, what would have happened to the company, the people who work there? Ingrid tells us she's at Sustain. And Sustain is going through a lot of challenges. They are there working to resolve the challenges. If she had listened to the audience would go, what are you doing there? You can't tell people you're working at Sustain in public, right? So equally, public sector is an area where people with skills will go there. So Wits University Business School celebrated 100 years. We're invited to go and speak about, each one of us to speak for, I can't remember, 100 years, 10 minutes for 100 years, whatever, I can't count. But Mteto spoke, and then he said, he talked about people he admired. And one of the people he said he admired was the CEO of Eskom, who at the time was under the radar. The room. Mteto said, you don't like Andre Derrida because he's telling you the truth. You want somebody to tell you that load shedding will be solved today. Then you are happy, right? 6 months on, Mteto took his entire reputation and put up his hand to be the chairman of Eskom. We all want Eskom to be fixed, but I'm not going to go there. But I want the lights. Who is going to go there if we're not willing to go there? Tsekani Maluleka, one of the finest auditors you'll find, says, I will go to the Auditor General and be the Auditor General, right? Kit Sweater says, I'll go to SARS and head up SARS. But Toyi says, I'll go to the NPA, right? Each one of us has to go to where the problems are. Do not ask for guarantees because there are none, right? Then I'll complete the picture by saying, a couple of months back, at the midst of worst crisis in the country, we were asked as CEOs to put a pledge whether can we work with government to solve some of the country's intricate problems. The business community was divided. Others said, if we go help, we'll help the ruling party. But we said, it's South Africa Inc. We're expecting people to invest. We go and ask them to invest in this company, in this country. If we are not solving South Africa's problems, who will? There's part that the public sector has to play, there's part we have to play. So we got in there and we signed a CEO pledge. There were about 100 CEOs who signed this pledge. And we've been working with government on 3 things: energy, transport and infrastructure, and crime and corruption. There are many problems, but we've identified those 3 and we've invested amounts of money. We've given people to solve many of these things. Many of them cannot be seen because it's structural things that have to be done. Right? Let me just give you quick 3 examples. To have a crime lab for the country where you can do DNA and whatever, you would agree it's an important thing, right? The country doesn't have one. So to invest in that created was important. To get people who will investigate deep commercial crime of billions, you need skilled prosecutors, right? Investing in that we could do. To make changes in the legislation to get alternative providers to help Eskom business that will be involved in that. To make changes so that the ports can get stuff out and in and all of that, we had to get involved in that. So I think that business standing away from public sector is not useful. You have to engage. Is it easy? No, it's not. But it has to be done because we owe it to our children to leave them a better country than what we have. Thank you.
Well, I've been given one chance to make one quick comment, and it's in response to your question. I can't say that I'm going to go and sign up for a job in the public sector, and I'm sure that all of us are grateful for the jobs we have where we have them. But I think the primary purpose of SHEroes is to give you the opportunity to get in contact with the experts that you're looking for, to give you an opportunity to be mentored by somebody who speaks to your soul, who's somebody who is a specialist in the thing that you're learning to do or want to learn to do, and to be able to reach out to them. And this forum and this movement gives us all an opportunity to reach out to the people who we wouldn't have had an opportunity to have access to before. So well done, Julia and Joe.
Thank you so much. Here's a little something for you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Wow. I know my boss is looking at his watch because he said to me, no, sorry, CE. I actually mean the MD. I have many bosses, as you can see, but there's one that signs my performance evaluation, and that's the MD. And he was yesterday looking at the program and he said to me, Ria, you'll need to manage the time. I failed. But I trust it will be seen in a positive light since the CE gave me permission, although he's watching his watch. Anyway, I just want to say really, really thank you to our speakers. I mean, without this, this event wouldn't have been possible. So thank you so much. Then the comments on Teams and on Slido, etc., is just overwhelming. So I'm going to keep it short. What to expect next? More of the same, yes. And it's open to all internal auditors or people starting out their careers to be internal auditors. So there is no differentiation between public sector, bankers, non-bankers, it doesn't matter. As a profession of internal auditors, we really need to support each other, and women specifically. So some of the events might be exclusively for ladies, where we will discuss certain specific challenges that's more pertinent to ladies. But a lot of the events will be open to everybody. On the LinkedIn page, we are planning to create a lot more assets. Like I've been told, it's not articles that I write, it's assets that I'm creating. And we're planning to do podcasts, we're planning to do just-in-time training sessions. I'm planning to use online a lot. Clearly from today's event, again, it's been proven that, you know, a lot of people prefer online. I think at some stage we had over 300 people this online. So it's just overwhelming. So see, that's why I always put on the camera so that I'm, you know, I am comfortable. I practice that when so many people look at me on camera, I'm used to it. But clearly there is a large audience of passionate internal auditors outside of Gauteng that also want to participate. So some questions were around, are we just going to focus on leadership skills, or are we also going to focus on new people coming into the profession? We're definitely going to do both. I know it's very ambitious. So right now I feel like I've got a long list of things we want to achieve. We will need to prioritize at some point. But then again, I also know there are so many people that want this to be a success. So I'm not alone. So I know if I reach out to the many colleagues out there, we can make it happen. So I'm going to definitely try and drive as much as possible for as many of the people as possible. On this note, and I know there's possibly more questions and suggestions, I just want to say, please put it in the Teams chat or on the application, on the app, or talk to me. I'm not going anywhere until around 1 o'clock. Tell me, email me, or whichever way you choose to get hold of us. On the SHEroes LinkedIn page, we get all those messages. I've got two very capable ladies that help me with that. We will get your messages, we will get your suggestions. And we will certainly take all of that into account to make the best of this platform, which is becoming a movement. I need to think about that. So at this point, I've got excellent news for all of you. There's in the room, there is 3 gifts for people in the room today. Then as a continuation of the efforts around mentoring, a number of people have come forward and volunteered some of their time to mentor individuals, internal auditors. So there's a digital gift for everybody that will go out, I think Monday, right, Des? Lebo, Monday, this afternoon, Monday, probably Monday. And the only reason why it's Monday is because Ria needs to do the final proofread. I am who I am. And it is actually a self-assessment for where you'd find yourself at the moment in your career. It's 10 questions that you can reflect on and answer for yourself with your comments. And then there is 24 hours, 24 hours of mentoring time available to anybody. People in the room, online, any one of you can actually be eligible for the 24 hours time. And we're going to randomly draw, right, Lebo? Yes. So randomly, we're going to pick 24 people, and they will get a chance for 1 hour of mentoring time by none other than Lincoln, our CE, our MD, and there's a couple of more people, Dr. Sylvia, our CIO, myself, a corner. So I just thought, you know, having to choose, do I give you today a mug, a pen, or an hour of somebody's time that where you can, in confidence, in a safe environment, speak freely about you, your career, is more valuable than a mug. If you don't like my choice, sorry. But I thought that is a better way of giving back and start this movement of SHEroes beyond internal audit. So on this note, I'm going to ask our CE for the closing comments, and then we can all go back for coffee and snacks. And there is, oh, you want them to quickly look under your chairs for you. If you're eligible for your gift, there will be a sticker. A sticker. You should really do. I can promise you, I inspected the chairs. There are actually 3 stickers.
No. I'm not eligible.
We have a winner. Just a sticker. Yes. Yes. It should be another yes. I think there was one more this side of the room.
Yes. Thank you, Leah Ancona. Oh.
Yes, they also want
Oh,
to
so
see
they
you.
want, okay, no, that's fine. Inclusion. What a wonderful session, debut session, inaugural session. I think my expectations were exceedingly exceeded. Well done to the team. Can you give them, an applause? We'll do. Yeah. So I'm quite emotional. The emotions don't show. But I'm very touched about this session. I must say I wasn't sure what to expect, and more. I think the emotion came because this session took me back to 2011, when we formed Sizwe Nsaluba Koboto, SNG. And at that stage, we thought we're doing this deal for ourselves. And so this deal makes sense. It's a business deal, look at the rents and cents, capacity, and etc. And as we announce the deal to stakeholders, announce the deal to the public, we looked at ourselves, came back, saying, guys, this thing is bigger than us. This thing is not about us. And we were humbled by the reception and the support. And we had carried the hopes of South Africa Inc. And we had therefore no option but to succeed and not fail. Similarly, enter today here. I thought this project is about women in internal audit. Yes, women in internal audit. And I was restrictive. But today I was challenged that is more. Actually, it's more than that. It is primarily about women in internal audit. But as Lincoln has said, it's a movement. It's a movement that goes beyond us sitting here. It's a movement that will go and touch society out there, make a difference, make an impact in society out there, not only to the girl child, but to the boy child in there. And it's a great responsibility. Let's not be scared about it. We pledge my personal support of the EXCO. 3 of the EXCO members are here. And we are really committed to this. And when you look at South Africa Inc. and the challenges, enormity of the challenges that are there, they are quite scary, and you may tend to reflect. But you said in our area of influence, and I think we've already touched area of influence, which is here. But this session has impacted us so much that it goes beyond this room, and we'll do that. So I wish you well, and thank you for your support, all that are online and in person. We cannot do it on our own. We really need you as stakeholders, collaborators, to really be the change that we want to be. Thank you. Thank you.
A very little thing. I will recommend you share it with your wife.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Okay.
It's a very little.
Thank you.
And last but not least, just for the ladies that helped me to make this a success, Akorna, Lebo, there's a little something for you as well. I recommend you do not share. Okay. And then just for Sasfin, for helping us with the organization, the event. Lindsay, what's Haley? Haley, I don't know why you're becoming a Lindsay now. But anyway, Haley, thank you so much. And this morning when I came here and I saw you were more stressed about everything, I knew I can relax. Because you cared more about, as much about the event as we did. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please, there's more coffee, and the coffee is really nice. I can promise you that, and more eats. Please don't go away immediately. Stay along and stay with us for a while. And then the self-assessment digital gift will be emailed out to everybody. So if you're here in person, make sure you did register at the front. And for the online participants, we do have your details as well. And then we will let you know Monday who is eligible for the mentoring hour. Thank you very, very much.
Started the movement.